Hey guys, it's Mr. H. Question number 10 from the January 2023 Regents exam. All right, so this one is not that difficult if you know how to graph and you know how to store. So I'm going to show you how I teach my kids, how I want them to do it. It says, Caitlin graphs a function f of x equals a times x squared, where a is a positive integer. If Caitlin multiplies a by a -2 when compared to f of x, the new graph will become, and then we got 4 choices. All right, so now, if you know your transformation rules, this is a pretty simple question, but even if you don't know your transformation rules, you still can get this because you have a powerful calculator. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how I want my kids to do this, especially if they get stuck. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the calculate part. Now, when you're graphing, you can only graph X and Y, right? So in this particular question, it had f of x equals ax squared. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do what they said. They said a has to be a positive integer, so pick one. So I'm going to say, okay, a is 5. So I'm going to do control store, and I'm going to store this into the letter A. Boom, done. Now, I'm going to go to the graphing part, and I'm going to enter the original function. So it's going to be a times x squared. That's it. Now, there's one thing that I got to be careful of. Whenever you have two variables next to each other, the calculator thinks that you're trying to create a new variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and make this explicit. This is a times x squared. Now notice, when I did that, the a became bolded. And what that means is that that particular letter is not a variable anymore because I've stored a number in it. And if you want to see it, if you press enter, that's what the graph looks like. That's what, when you plug 5 into A, this is what the graph looks like. Now, what the question said is that what happens to that function if you multiply A by a -2? So let's do that. So we go back to the graph, and I'm going to press tab. Well, I'm going to press tab, and then I'm going to go to a -2 times a times x squared. And now that's going to be my next. So now the one thing that you should notice is that it flipped because of the -2. When you multiply any function by a negative number, it gets reflected over the x-axis, right? So that's what happened. But also, because we're multiplying it by a -2, it's become thinner than this one. And if you want to see how I know it's thinner, is I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do tab, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a +2 times a times x squared. So, and you can see that that's going to be inside the blue one. So that means this red one is narrower than the blue one, and it's also reflected. So our answer choice, let's go back to the answers, would be, it is open downward and it's narrower. So it would be choice 1. That's it. Just graph it and then do what it's saying. If A is a positive integer, then put in positive integer and for A. If we're multiplied it by a -2, multiply it by a -2, and then see what it looks like. All right, so I am going to stop recording and post this.